Hello, creative souls. I am so happy you're here. Welcome to I Am Creative. This is where we're redefining what it means to be a creative being. You don't need a pencil and a paintbrush, everybody. Just a little secret on that. Creativity lives in all of us. So, my name is Hollis Citron, and here what we do is we are diving in to inspiring conversations with everybody, with musicians, with doctors, with artists, with parents, and everyone in between. So get ready to explore, expand, and to connect. Let's spark the creative fire together. Please like, comment, and subscribe to join the community. And I can't wait to introduce you to my guest. Her name is Leslie Kuny. She is a full-time dance teacher and choreographer. She's a certified dance adjudicator through the Dance Leadership Institute and the Professional Adjudicators Alliance, and the artistic director and owner of Absolute Motion Performance and Dance Studio in Surrey, British Columbia. What's so cool about Leslie is that her passion is empowering and educating the next generation of dancers to be their best selves. Her human-centered approach to coaching rejects the outdated norms of fear-based authoritarian learning that is so frequently associated with dance education. I cannot wait for you to meet Leslie, and we're going to have such a great conversation. So,
Hi.
Leslie, welcome to the space.
Thank you. Oh, I was just really listening to you. I mean, that's my bio. But to hear you say it, it was so I don't know, today it just felt like it penetrated a little bit and I was like,
Mm.
wow. So thank you for giving me that. That was really, really, really really beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, there's a whole bunch more, which is all going to be on the podcast. But you're going to learn so much about Leslie from actually hearing the words come out of her mouth. So I can't wait to dive into the conversation. But what we're going to start with is a little fun fact. Do you have a fun fact? Now, no pressure, no pressure. I know this can be a little bit annoying, but just a fun fact to share about yourself so we can know more about you.
I like it, but then the perfectionist in me was like, what's a fun fact enough? What's an enough fun fact? But I was thinking back and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Um, Way back I think it was 2005, actually. So I just turned 21. And my boyfriend at the time and I went to Vegas during reading break. And I saw and met Howie Mandel in a casino in Vegas, but not before being super weird and awkward, where I like did a couple of like nonchalant loops to just double check that it was actually him. And then I finally this is sort of like my mantra for life. I'm like, will I regret not doing this? If the
Mm-mm.
answer is yes, just swallow that fear and like keep moving through it and go do it. So I went up to him and I said, hi, Mr. Mandel. Like, we're also Canadian. Nice to meet you. Like, he took a photo with us. It was very nice. And then as we kind of like flashed back, because we noticed he was probably with like a manager or somebody who was on the phone. And my husband and I have created this story of like, oh, he was making the deal for Deal or No Deal. Like when we met him in Vegas, like that was what was going on. I have no idea. He's probably just performing. But yeah, so that was kind of cool. It was like a little celeb sighting. So that was quite fun.
I love that. And what I really love about what you said, which ties in so much to everything that we're going to be talking about, I think, is will I regret not doing this?
Yeah. Yeah. It is something that probably for close to 20 years has been a guiding light, a guiding arrow for me. Is like, hey, yes, this is scary, or yes, this is new or challenging, or I don't know how this is going to play out. And if I look back, will I regret not doing it? And if the answer is yes, which it often is, I just have to like bring yourself together. And the more you do that, the more action you take, the more courage comes.
Mm.
So yeah, yeah, two and one. Will I regret it? If it's a yes, go do it. And the more action you take, the more courage you build.
Okay, so let's dive into this, and there are four questions that support this space. and a free flowing conversation, and we're just kind of going with it. We're going to see where it goes. So, my first official question is, Leslie, how do you define creativity?
It's I don't know that I define it, because I think you can find it in a lot of, without sounding too cliche, I think you can
Mhm,
find it in a lot of different places.
mhm,
And it's a broader definition than I think a lot of people are willing to recognize. Um, for me, it's baked into my soul. I've never really realized this, and this is a new process I'm sort of working out, where I'm meeting these new people who don't know me, and they're starting to get to know me, and they see all the things I do, and what I keep getting bombarded with is, "Oh my gosh, you're so creative. Oh my gosh, you're so creative." And as a creative, I'm like, I don't see that, because I struggle sometimes to be creative, or it feels like it's just a part of who I am. I don't even consciously really think about being creative, because, like I say, just sort of like saturated, marinated in it for my whole life. But even those who don't maybe have a creative practice, I think creativity is an innate part of being a human, and we have monetized it and and stratified it in ways that have encouraged regular folks to forget that they're creative. So we hear people say, I can't paint, I can't draw, I can't sing, I can't, all these things. But nobody's ever like, well, I can't do math. And I'm like, it's the same. I'm like, you don't know how to do math until you learn math. You don't know how to be creative until you practice it, especially if you haven't been in practice of it. So I'm not sure that it's truly a definition, but I do think it's an innate human trait that if we were to offer more space to people as they go through
mm,
the junior high, high school space, it might stay with them into adulthood. Spicy take.
mhm.
But also true. Like, I've seen it, and a lot of people um in the creative world, or even in education, I think will resonate with that as well. If we could encourage keeping a creative practice of some sort from like age 11 to like 19, and even beyond a little bit, until you really get into like adult life, I think more people would be like, yeah, creativity is a part of me, not something that like lives over there.
Not something that lives over there.
Yeah.
I think that's something to take in, everybody.
I think it's just how, and I'm not too sure why. I mean, okay, I could really dig into it and be like, well, the patronage, and then paying people to paint for you, and these sorts of things. And we go back in art history, and um, but yeah, I really think we've othered creativity, as opposed to owning it as, like I say, like an innately human trait, something that we all have access to. And and then really circling back to your question of creativity, it's like, well, creativity is also, I have broccoli, I have pasta, and I have chicken, and I have to get a meal on the table in 45 minutes. That's creativity. It's not painting, it's not writing a symphony. Those are those, yes, are things that are creative, but like, oh, this is a new thought. It just, oh, I'm into this, and I'm going to have to explore it a little bit further. I think creativity is fancy, fun, beautiful problem solving. I've never said that before, and I never thought that before. This is an exclusive, an
Hmm.
exclusive. But
You
the
heard it
more I
here.
think, I'm like, that's what it is. When, we have a phrase, get creative. And what does that actually mean? It means solve the problem in a new way. Find a new way to figure this out. Oh, I'm so pumped.
That's
I'm sorry, I just got like so pumped about that.
that's but it is. It's
Yeah,
That's what I love about these conversations, is that it's a fluid conversation, and it's not necessarily thought out. There's the structure, but it's not thought out. So,
yeah,
and this is the creative process, everybody.
100%.
It's the free flow. But I think something important to say, there's so many things that you said that I want to touch on, but
Yeah,
I want to reinforce to everybody that it's allowing for the flow. Ladies and gentlemen, something mind breaking, my whatever, you're going to make mistakes. You're
yeah,
going to mess up. It's not going to work out. Like, we know that this is part of the process. We've learned as adults, we start to learn as kids, teenagers, and through the whole process, that you're going to mess up. There's going to be mistakes, but that's where And it's so cheesy and it's so, but it's where the learning happens, and it's where
Yeah.
and you have a choice, everybody, on if you're going to respond or react, like how you're going to react. Oh, I messed up. That was a mistake. Huh, maybe I won't do that again. Or, that's really cool the way that it actually turned out. I
Yeah.
never would have expected that. Just like you said, I've never actually thought this before,
Yeah.
but we're just having a conversation because it's creating the space to allow for it.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting in the cheesiness of mistakes are part of the process? That's how we learn, that's how we grow. In a weird way, this is my experience in the creativity sphere, like it's not allowed to make mistakes. There's this perfectionism and drive to create a product, which I understand. But if you talk to someone who's maybe in science or STEM, you have to do experiments. You have to test
Yeah.
the hypothesis. We need to take that thinking and apply it to creativity. And that's something that I tell my kiddos all the time because they want to be, and I think this applies to like any type of creative pursuit, the drive to be perfect in practice can be problematic. That's too many P's. But 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 it's true. And if we can take the idea of like the dance studio or the your practice of like drawing your sketchbook or you're just messing around with your instrument, that is a lab. You are testing hypothesis. You might blow up the Bunsen burner, like that can happen, and it's all information so that you can get to that final product. So I always talk about my studio as a lab. I do not want perfection. Also, it's never going to happen. It's not going to happen in here. It's not going to happen on stage. Wah, wah. And so, why not take this opportunity in the studio space to experiment? Because you're going to
Okay.
find stuff that that you might not have found otherwise.
Definitely. Love the lab. Definitely take that with you, everybody. Okay, so let's learn more about you, Leslie. So, oh, I know you've danced like your whole life,
Yeah.
but give us like a synopsis of maybe what it was like for you as a kid, and then now owning your own dance studio. Like, give us a little bit more information, please.
Yeah. Just it was the through line of my life from a very young age. It's what I've always done. It's been my passion. Um, and again, just sort of baked into who I am. Now it's just kind of like synonymous, Leslie Dance. I think it's been like that for a long time.
Mm,
So yeah, just trained in a studio in Saskatoon, Juliet's Dance Center. Um, I had wonderful training, loved it so much. Getting to the end of high school, thinking, well, now what? And then I researched and I was like, oh, I could go to university and dance. And my parents were highly recommending that I get a degree as a backup. And then I was like, haha, I can get a degree in dance. So I did. Thankfully, I think both of them are quite proud that I can say that I am using my BFA almost on a daily basis. So yeah, I graduated from Simon Fraser University with a Bachelor of Fine Arts, and then just kept on keeping on. When I was a teenager, I also started assisting dance classes. My teacher, Megan, saw something in me and wanted to encourage and empower that. She saw my love for kids and helpfulness and a little bit of the same. You see yourself in your kids. Now that I'm a little bit older, I get that
mm,
even more. So I had started assisting and I really liked it. I've known probably since first grade that I wanted to be a teacher of some sort. I think it was because I just wanted to write on Blackboard. That seemed like so fun. But I think I like education. I like sharing education. I like ensuring that people are seen
mm,
and that I understand that weirdness that you have, or this challenge or this roadblock that makes you feel other, or that you can't accomplish this thing. And I'm here to be like, oh, honey, you are so wrong about yourself. And if there's one person who can cheerlead you, I want it, I hope it can be me. Um, yeah. So then I just taught as a contractor all over the lower mainland of British Columbia. as well as in Saskatchewan a little bit as well, when I was first starting. And then the next, maybe not next obvious step, but then, yeah, I moved into dance studio ownership, which has been a wonderful and interesting, ride. I own Absolute Motion Performance and Dance. And yeah, and now I also get to adjudicate. That was sort of the next step after 20 years of teaching. I was like, oh, I'd like to give back in another way. I'd like to impact more people. So I looked into how I could become an adjudicator, which is a fancy word for judge, where we are at competitions and we watch the kiddos and we give them feedback to help them get better. So it's very fulfilling for me. I adore it. But now dance is my life as opposed to my hobby. So it's when creativity goes from something that it still fills me up, but there's a difference between doing it for you because you enjoy it, and then when it moves into more of a career, it brings a lot of different feelings and a lot of different challenges.
Yes, which I want to make sure I'm going to say the word other, and I don't
Yeah.
want you to forget that because we're going to go back to it. But so how does that feel for you actually? That I like that you brought up the hobby and the business and the real life. Like
Yeah.
in reality, how does that make you? Do you feel like it gets in the flow at all of your, I mean, creativity is within everything,
Yeah.
but do you feel like it's creates like a negative feeling that it creates a roadblock or I'm
Yeah,
curious.
it's still something I think that I unpack, um, depending on where the feelings are, because it can feel a little less fulfilling sometimes. It kind of just feels like, okay, like here's the grind because it is my job, right? So it's not a 9 to 5, it's a 5 to 9. But yeah, it can feel a bit unfulfilling. And when I experience that, I kind of have to stop and just zoom out. It's my favorite thing. I'm like, I need to zoom out because what happens is, and again, this happens in anything where we get hyper focused
Mhm.
and we're just looking down this like straw sized barrel and everything's a pain in the bum. And like you can't see the forest for the trees and you have to zoom out. And then I go, holy smokes, I'm really living my dream and I need to calm down and like,
Mhm.
yeah. And also recognizing that for myself, when I moved from dance as something that fed my soul as a teenager and young adult to now it being my career, that was also, I had to figure out who I was because that
Mhm.
dance isn't something I like to do now. Dance is my job. So, what do I like to do? Who am I? I'm not Leslie the dancer. So, like, what are my hobbies? What do I like to do? I can't be in my job 24/7. That's very unhealthy. And if I'm not in my job, working in my job and working in the thing that I love, what does that mean about me? I don't want to do my job. I don't love like all of these like very
Yes.
large, scary, existential, spicy questions that can really make you spin out. And so recognizing that I'm like, yep, this is my job and I do love it. And now my job is to instill the love that I have in this younger generation. That's my role now. They're not feeding me. I mean, they are, but I am feeding them. And then I have an entire other life
Yeah.
outside of the studio, outside of dance, other things I enjoy, snorkeling, reading books, um, working out, which is not, that's a new thing. It's not, and I sometimes I don't really enjoy it, but I'm like, but I have these other outlets
Yeah. Yeah.
that feed me. And I think that's the key is I needed to find other outlets that helped fill up the pieces or the gap that dance had left because dance evolved in my life
Yeah.
and wasn't serving me in the same way. So instead of being the whole pie, it became a piece of the pie. And then I had to find the other pieces to fill it up.
I think what you're saying applies to everybody, to
100%.
everything, because whether the things that I said in the beginning, you're a doctor, you're a parent, you're a scientist, You're a whatever you are, it's these things that when we get so immersed into our job, which becomes an identity often, we forget who we are. So,
100%.
ladies and gentlemen, this is a reminder that this is it's and it can be uncomfortable because admittedly I get there too because I get so immersed. My daughter especially, who is my mirror, she's 21, she's just kind of like, can you talk about something besides what you do? I'm like,
Yeah,
but I love what I do. And she's like, is there anything else in your life? And sometimes I'm like, is there anything else in my life?
right?
Because we get so passionate about
Yeah.
what we do. But you know this, ladies and gentlemen, that we tend to get drained when we don't allow ourselves the rest and the reprieve and the filling ourselves up. Which I'm going to get to the healing question soon. But when I said other, you
Yeah.
had mentioned twice. You said something to the effect of we have othered creativity, and you said a roadblock makes you feel other.
Yeah.
And I just wanted you to dive into that a little bit more because I'd never heard that kind of expression before. So
Yeah,
I was
I don't think I've
curious.
ever said a roadblock can make you feel othered before. But the
So
more I
cool.
yeah, so ooh,
I get
I
the sense of what you're saying, but I
I
just want to
know,
hear
I'm
from
just like
you.
I'm like, how you know what? Let's just stand on the soapbox for a hot minute because it's who
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
Um, I do think, and I think this comes from a lot of different places. We've been fed this information from a lot of different places. So there's no one singular thing to blame. But if you think about how artistic people are often represented in pop culture through like movies and things like this, and again, I'm of an era, so like that's where it's coming from too, where it's like, oh, the weird girl, ooh, the artsy girl, ooh, that, like, oh,
Uh,
that quirky person. And it's sort of this like, and I think honestly that comes from a defensive place to make the person who's saying that feel a bit better because they maybe see something that they'd like to do, but they don't feel capable of it. So you other the person, and we want to exist, oh my gosh, this is really going to go for it. Stay with me, friends.
yeah.
To stay safe in our like tribal lizard brain, you have to kind of conform and agree to the group because the group will protect you and keep you safe. Therefore, you will live as long as you can. So, that weirdness over there, we don't want that to be a part. That's too much for us. We don't want to deal with that. So I think that can happen to creative people,
Yes.
and not from a place. I hope, I don't know. Like I think it's really, now as an adult I see it as like a defense or wishing, that they had some of that sort of like sparkle, which they do. It just hasn't been, fed. Um, and it makes it easy. Othering people is easy as opposed to seeing
Yeah.
yourself or humanity in general in another, right? Like saying like, yep, you are me, I am you. um that and again, in terms of roadblocks making you other or challenges making you other, again, wanting to fit into a group, wanting to fit into a mold, wanting to understand where we belong. And if I have this challenge that seems unique to me and everyone else in the group is just kicking it and they don't have a problem with that challenge, holy smokes, does that ever make you feel like other? Right? Like, oh, in my world, if we've got a group of kids and everyone can do a double pirouette and there's one kid on the struggle bus who just hasn't put her puzzle pieces together, that is rough and that is an other. And so if you don't address that as the leader in that space, that can really drain that kid and then they quit.
Yes.
And then one thing that is fixable turns into a person who has just quit on creativity because they felt othered. Not, it's no one's fault, but it's just the space and environment. And that's like heartbreaking to me. So when I see that, I'm like, no, 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 I will not let this break you, because in 2 weeks somebody else is going to struggle with something else and you're going to be a part of the pack. And like, don't let that keep you from where you're supposed to be.
Okay, so in a dance setting,
Mm-hmm.
how does that work when, so let's say 3/4 of the group, let's say that 99% of the group gets it, and there's the one kid that doesn't.
Yeah.
Are you pulling the kid to the side and doing an individual demo, or are you demoing to the class saying, "We're working on this some more. I'm going to slow down the steps. I'm going to show you." How do you handle that?
So for me, it really depends on the goal, what type of class we're in, and where we're at in the season, because those are kind of linked together. Most of the time, I don't like to call out a student individually. Let's be real. We all know when we're failing. Nobody needs to shine a spotlight on us. Like, absolutely not.
Exactly.
Don't do it. Don't do it. I don't know. Like, but there also are kids who feed on that. And when you get to know people, you can do that. So I will always make the class do it over and over again, because real talk, none of the other kids have it perfect either. Like, they have it, but there's always things we can work on. And it's team bonding. Like, it's not this one person is struggling, so I'm just gonna, you know, single them out. It's like, no, 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 we need to get this as a team. Everyone's got to be on the same page with this. Now, if it extends beyond like a time and space where I'm like, okay, this should be clicking, then I'll talk to the kiddo, or I might book a private with them just to work on this specific thing where it's just that student and myself, no
Yeah.
one else. So it's a very safe. Um, and then another thing, another thing that can kind of bring equality, as long as you do it in a kind way, is say in the group setting, you have everyone show you, and you maybe put that kiddo in the middle of that group. And so each individual has to do it. But then I will always have feedback for every individual. So it doesn't look like I'm
Mm,
just singling out that
yeah.
particular student. I'm not saying, I don't even like that word, to be honest, but I'm not giving feedback just to that student. It's to everyone, and it's specific to that person. So it's also, yeah, because everyone will have something different to work on, regardless of like how good they are with their technique in that particular like movement.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I
Yeah.
think everybody again can relate, because ladies and gentlemen, you can relate, I'm sure, in some scenario that you've been in a meeting, or you've been, for me, like in an art setting or whatever it is, and somebody's like, Hollis, are you going to do that a little better next time? And you're just like, oh my God, like, why did you just call me out in front of
Yeah.
everybody? And I have done so many professional developments where when I start it, I say, who has been told or something that they're not good at something, or, and there's always the hands that go up,
Yep.
and these people are just like, I was told that. Or this one person was incredibly angry, saying that his middle school ceramics teacher broke every one of his pieces. Here he was, like a 40-some-year-old man,
Mm-hmm.
and we know that the teacher did not break every one of his pieces, like not intentionally, but something happened in the mix. But that was the I you get the idea.
But that,
Everybody,
I think that's
people hold on to these things.
that's exactly right. And we, it's spicy. As leaders in a creative practice, or even in, like you say, like in a corporate setting or something, that call out, that potential negative interaction, even though it might seem very small to you, is going to stay with that other person. Like, exactly like you said, like,
Yes.
what, 20 plus years on. And that is a lot of responsibility to take on. And like, we're all people, we can only take on so much. And we're given a very important and like a job, like a very something to really honor and be careful with, because these people that we work with can carry what we say with them and without us really recognizing it. And I'm sure we've all done it. And just to try to be as mindful as possible.
And it's being authentic. It's being
Yeah.
authentic and having real conversations, everybody. So stuff happens. We're not perfect individuals. We say things out of frustration. We do things, but it is the tweak in the conversation. Like if you are in a business meeting and you get shushed and you get told to,
It's also wild to me that like an
that's
adult would shush another adult.
and that's someone that I know, and actually I helped publish her book, Trust Your Own Voice, where that was a scenario that did happen. And she was kind of like that stuff. It changes you. And again, it can change you and it can make you small, or it can be like, I'm not taking that anymore. I don't deserve that. And it can expand you.
Right.
There's so much in that, but I think that, so where I'm going to go to next, which I'm curious, is the question of how has creativity healed you, either spiritually, physically, or emotionally?
Again, so difficult for me to drill down and answer because I feel like creativity is so baked into who I am. Um, I think the strongest memory or strongest feeling I have is remembering when I was a teenager, hormones, and like high school drama. And I swing, I still do, but I know better as an adult. I had big swings emotionally. So very, very happy and like very emotional, could get sad very easily, angry very easily. Um, so dance was my outlet. And I remember, say, I would have a fight at home with my family, and then the drive to dance is so tense, and you're just steaming mad and you're not talking to anybody. And then I'd get in the studio and I'd still be in a bit of a huff, because you kind of want to, there's a righteousness in anger, and you kind of want to hold on to it because you don't want to let it go, because that means the other person wins. Um, but as I would get into dance class, 15 minutes in, that has started to melt away. And by the end of class, I was like, oh my word, why was I so mad? Um, and I didn't really understand it. I just knew that through that movement, particularly lyrical dance, I will say, um, just held me and allowed me to process my emotions in a way that I didn't really have. And I'm so grateful for that. And I think my parents are also very grateful for that. And so that, but still to this day, I have a very strong bond to lyrical dance, because it is still how I process my emotions. I make dances for the kids, obviously, but there's always a small nugget or kernel that feeds me, particularly in lyrical, because I'm like, this is my heart, this is my story. And the kids don't always know it, but I often will, there's something for me in that still. And now I'm not dancing it, I'm creating it, which is also very fun. Yeah, yeah.
What is lyrical dance?
So, great question. I sound like a broken record. Back in the 90s,
It's
um,
okay.
and it could have just been the studio I trained at. I don't know. Megan can let me know. But we didn't really dance to songs with lyrics in them very often. So like our jazz numbers were like techno or like rhythm, sort of like or African inspired, tribally sort of feeling music. So we didn't really have words to those songs. So then like lyrical kind of like was sort of bubbling in our studio, and we could finally dance to words with songs and like feel. So it's a hybrid of jazz and ballet movement. So it's again, and you're supposed to be telling the story in your movement. So that's the whole, you're telling the story, so your actions should match the words, and your emotion that you're portraying and the story you're portraying, and the movement is quite, it can be soft and gentle, but there's also like explosive moments. And yeah, it's one of my favorite. It really blends all the things I like together.
I mean, as you're saying that, I'm like, oh my God, how perfect is that? Like, especially when you're feeling a lot of emotions. So you're
Yeah,
going in and you get a chance, one, potentially you're distracted because you're focusing on something else, but then it's a
yes,
chance to physically, you're not just in your head, you're physically like you have the movement, you're in your
yeah,
heart, you're like you're able to like, have strength behind what you're doing. It's like that whole thing of when you get frustrated, it's like I need to move. Like, not everybody may be like that, but it's like, I need to get out of here. I need to take a walk. I need
Yeah.
to do something. There's that concept of movement.
100%. I'm so sorry. I'm just going to run out of frame for a second because my Mac just came up with my low battery, and I'm so sorry I'm not better prepared.
It's okay.
I feel like talk amongst yourselves, kind of like Saturday Night Live moment. I'm so sorry.
I love it. So everybody who's watching, thank you so much for being here. Please feel free to make any comments, be part of the conversation, please. This is my first time using Restream, so I'm gonna see if I can open up the chat. And if you just even say hi and where you're listening in from, that would be amazing. If I see you put anything in there, then I can respond because I actually can see the chat right now. But we're very happy and grateful that you're here.
And also,
So
hello. I've got my Instagram. I'm sorry, maybe not answering because I can't do all the things. I see you. Hello. Thank you so much. That was a great opportunity for me to practice, to advocate for myself and use my voice. I like saw it pop up and I was like, no. Oh my gosh.
All of a sudden it'd be like,
that would have been worse. I was like, and again, I was like, what's worse, regretting not asking to go get my charger or just letting my Mac die in the middle?
We just went full circle.
Truly. Oh man.
But what we're saying is that whole idea of the action, of the movement, of the so what I'm hearing from you is that the physical that physical movement gave you the ability to express yourself.
Yeah. And really connecting to the lyrics and the sound of the song. That sounds a bit silly, but it's true, because I can hear in a great lyric, like in a great song, a great vocalist will make you feel something deep. I hope it resonates with you in this, and you can kind of see them. You can tell if someone's smiling when they're singing. You can tell if someone's really belting. And so for me as a dance artist, that is what I connect to. I'm feeling your feelings. And now my job is to take what you're giving me from the song and then bring it this way. So yeah, it's sort of silly, but it's very collaborative, even if those other people aren't there live.
Mm-hmm.
It's very
That's
collaborative.
not silly. That's not silly at all.
And now when I create for people, it's still very collaborative to me. Like, I'm like, yes, this is the song I picked, and like, yes, this is the costume I picked, but I like to talk to my dancers and, get the vibe, and so that they feel connected to it. Because if they don't feel connected to it, it's not gonna, it can be the most perfect piece that's ever gone on stage. And I've seen them where I'm just like, oh, flawless, like beautiful. And then I'm like, oh, but there's just no soul behind this. The kids are just little dancing automatons. They've missed the heart piece. They've missed the whole reason we do it is the soul connection, is the heart connection, is the here I am as a human on stage. See me. I see you. Please see me. That made me a little shivery.
So what did I want to say? How did I want to word this? Because I think there's something very big in that. There is something. I did a multi-author book called Invisible No More, Step into the Spotlight. That whole idea of being seen. So has this stage been a place where you have felt comfortable being seen as opposed to other places? Were you the kid that would do public speaking? Were you the kid that would stand up to somebody else if they did something wrong? Or was the stage the place where you're like, this is my space, everybody, and don't mess with me because I have power here?
Yes, the latter. I do like public speaking because I see it as a performance. Everything is a performance to me. It's so funny. I was just talking to somebody about this today because they made a comment. They're like, oh, you're so easy on your Instagram. And I was like, babe, that's a performance. Like, and I think that's a great tool that I have at my disposal, but I have always loved performing. I truly love being on stage. It scares me a little bit more now as an adult to like dance on stage, and I'm trying to find different stages to perform on in different ways. But when I'm on stage, I get to be the version I want you to see. And that gives me power. And it is a real part of me. It's not the whole, pardon me. It's not the whole unvarnished, like ugly Leslie. You are not going to see that on stage. But you will see a piece of me that I want to share with you. And it is powerful. Also because usually the audience is strangers. And I hope this is a way that people can think about this a little bit more, depending on what arena you can use this in. They're strangers most of the time. Yes, there will be some family. Yes, there will be some friends. There will be some, pockets of people that you know. The other people are probably strangers, or like people you don't really know intimately. They don't matter. They're not going to come to me at my next birthday and talk to me about that performance. They're probably not even going to stay afterwards and say, great job. It doesn't matter. They get to go home and go live their life. And they saw a version of me, and they can take it or they can leave it. And I think that's so powerful, because I'm like, oh, those people don't actually know the real me. I'm giving them a version for them to enjoy. And then my family and friends and the people in the audience that I really know, that's what makes me nervous. Those are the people I can do anything in front of a bunch of strangers. They're just going to go on living their lives. And I'm a tiny little like dot.
Yeah.
And that's not to be like a nihilist about it, but I'm like, that's great. Like, they're probably not going to think about me again.
Okay, so then let's take that to the people that you do know.
Yeah.
So how has, in growing into adulthood and having more awareness towards things like this, how has creativity helped you heal maybe this aspect of self-consciousness or worthiness or whatever in front of these people, because you still are giving them a piece of you. They know the bigger piece of you, but you're showing them a piece of you in that moment, where I would think that would be like, they could say like, oh, cool, I haven't seen that part of Leslie before, or I have seen it, and look at how she's progressed, or look at how she's showing it in the moment. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's beauty in them knowing you, so they can see that in you.
Yeah, it's just a different audience experience depending on who's
Yes.
watching me, right? And because if you have more information, it will be a totally different experience for you. I am still working on self-acceptance, confidence in myself, even on stage, even in the places where I feel the most safe and confident, like the dance studio, or, even an arena like this where I'm talking about things that I really, really know. It's still difficult, I think, because when I dig down, I go, well, what's the performance and what's me? And will people really like what's me? Or do they just really like what the performance is? But and that is scary, and something to reflect on as a creative, because I don't think you can totally be 100% vulnerable. I think that's like too much with your audience, even if it's friends and family, like people who love you and know you. But yeah. I was just thinking back. I had to make a self-portrait. I've made two. I made one at each school I went to, and my second one was a lot more, very different, a lot informed in a different way. My parents had split between that time, and so it was a very different creation. And I was like, wow, that was very vulnerable for me. But I don't know that the people in the audience would have known how vulnerable it was for me, because they just see that the title is called God Said No. Here's Leslie doing this dance. She's signing. She's like, they don't have the full picture sometimes too. And I think that's really beautiful, is that we can create these things that are very meaningful for us and very vulnerable sometimes for us and cathartic, and we can share them, but it doesn't necessarily hit our audience in the same way that it hits us. And that's totally okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's in anything, right? I mean, anybody looks at watching a movie and they may grab something different from the movie. You're sitting there watching the same thing. It's,
Yes.
you're watching a performance, you're tasting food. Somebody loves it, somebody hates it.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
there's everybody kind of, you think about it. I mean, people are pretty self-centered. Like,
Yeah.
we care about ourselves in a sense, but when we're like looking outward, people are still, they're going to take in information in different ways based off of what their experiences are too, and what their
Oh,
filters are.
that that and I think that's
So,
so, no, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I'm like, that is
okay.
true. Like, people are taking it in through their own lens
Yeah.
and their own experiences, and so that also creates a bit of space, which I think is so helpful,
Yeah.
because you can just let them have their experience. 100%. Yeah.
And I think it's just when you have an awareness that people have stories, people have experiences, you don't know what happened to people that day, you don't know where their emotion scale is that day. I had a scenario today where with a student coming to class, she's missed like 10 classes. She's cutting. I know she's in the school. She has a lot of issues going on. When
Right.
I've seen her, I've confronted her on it, and there's a certain delicateness that you need to do,
Uh,
because when there's a ton of other stuff going on, when you hear it through the grapevine, and they do tell you there's other stuff, like there's sensitivity, but then there's that fine line of, mm, there's still like there's structure, and there's something with communication that needs to happen. But I
right.
guess, I guess where I was going with that is just like, it's that paying attention, being a good listener yourself in scenarios. This isn't necessarily talking about the performance, or maybe it is. When you're on stage, knowing your audience, you're still, I guess, is that something? You're on stage performing. Does anything change based off of your audience and knowing who they are?
Hmm. Not for me. Oh no. But oh,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it would or
that's a
wouldn't.
very good question. I was gonna be like, no, like, I'm gonna do it the same all the time. But it's and I think that's what's so beautiful about live creation. Like, if you're going to a symphony or a dance a performance. Actually, this is something that my dad said all the time, and I'm really keying into it now. Is like, he loved to see pieces multiple times. Like, if he could come to a show of mine and see
Yeah.
multiple runs, because he's like, it's never going to be the same.
Right.
You are doing the same choreography. It is the same music. It is the same people performing. It's a different audience. It's a different day, but everyone's coming in with like everything different, right? Like, depending on your day. And so, even though, and I mean, I've heard other like very fancy professionals even say, right, like, depending on your day, like, to pretend that you're not a human and you can go out on stage and just do it the exact same, it's not going to happen. Like, there's just, and that is the beauty. I will say, if I know I have someone I truly really love in the audience, my nerves go up big time, because I want them to be proud of me. I want to make them
Mm.
proud. Um, but for the most part, I would say the performance depends more on where I'm at that day, as opposed to who's in the audience. But then also remembering that, like, this is a new audience and they deserve the best that I can offer them today. So, like, don't I'm lucky that I haven't done shows for like a very long period of time where you would get like very tired and like very exhausted of the material, without trying to keep some like sparkle in it, because I think it's beneficial. It's not 90% of your thought process, but it's like, you do have to think about your audience. I think that's only fair. They have paid to come see you. They are offering you like,
Yeah.
however many hours of their job to come see you, and to pretend like they don't exist, which I realize feels counterintuitive, how I was like, these people don't matter. But that's in terms of like the mind game of like, you know, don't let them freak you out. But I want to honor them in
Right.
that
Right.
they
Right.
took the time, they took the money, they came to come see me. They deserve the best that I can offer them. And that can also sometimes really like pick you up and be like, hey, let's go give him a show. Like that's the whole no
Mm,
business like show. Like that's the whole thing.
that that leads into, so yeah, what I was just going to ask you, and
Yes.
we are getting ready to wind up, which is crazy that it's been pretty much an hour, but you've had a really, let's say you've had a really crappy day and you're just like, I have to go out and do a 2-hour performance. What do you do for yourself? What kind of practices do you do for yourself in order to get into a better headspace?
So for me, I think sometimes just doing the thing is one of the biggest things I can do. Because again, like the story I told earlier of how I'll be like in a crummy mood at dance as a teenager
Right,
and then I
right,
just
right,
get
right.
into it. But you don't want the first 15 minutes to be pure trash if you can avoid it. Um, so I'm really, as much as I am an extrovert and I adore people and I adore talking and I love socializing, if I am in a crummy mood and I need to get something done, do not, please do not. Because I will want to make this all about you and fix you. And what I really need to do right now
Mm,
is focus on me.
yes.
Ugh,
Boundaries.
and even that feels very uncomfortable for me to say. So I like to be alone if I'm in a crummy mood. Um, I also don't want to have that energy affect others, like because that is not okay either. Like, yeah, I can come in with a crummy day, but if my crummy day makes everybody else's day a crummy day, that's just not okay with me. So it's my job to bring myself up to at least like a mediocre baseline of like, okay, I can interact with people and my energy will not flood them because I do have big energy. I have big emotions and I try to be as mindful about that as I can. Music, 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 music. I will put my headphones on and I will listen to something empowering, something that really pumps me up. Like literally any Lizzo song, any Justin Timberlake song. September by Earth, Wind and Fire. I don't think I can listen to that song and be unhappy. Lovely
Mm.
Day by Bill Withers. Like I think that's like truly, there have been days where I'm just like, this is the worst day. And that song comes on. I'm like, you can't be mad when this song is, it's truly impossible. Like, and so it's like, it's on every playlist that I have. Bad day playlist, good day playlist. But music will really help me get back to where I
Yeah.
am. That's just a soul connection for me. Um, and I'm heavily influenced by music. So if I'm listening to good music, it's very hard to feel bad.
Okay, so a little repetitious, but as we wind this up, give us your final thoughts on why you think creativity is important.
Because if we don't honor the importance of creativity in whatever form that is, from making dinner to designing a road to problem solving something at work to encouraging your child who wants to do crazy stuff with their life, I think we take away a piece of our innate humanness. And the more we degrade that as a society, all of a sudden we will get to a place where we're like, oh, these TV shows aren't very good. Oh, there's no ballet to go watch. Oh, that ad's kind of boring. And people won't, I think it will happen. This is my dystopia. It will happen slowly and people won't notice until it's so late. But creativity is really infused into everything we do. And I think the pandemic really showed that to us and how easily we forgot that. Like all we could do was like watch TV and take in creativity and podcasts and these sorts of things. And even like video games, the ads, the billboards you see, like it is all creativity. And if we continue to chip away at its worthiness and we are creating a culture that doesn't value it, and then all of a sudden it won't be there. Oh, spicy soapbox moment. And when we do that, we create people who don't value arts. And that is reflected in how we use our voice in potentially large places where you select people who run your country or your neighborhood or your province. It's true. If you create people who don't I want to curse so bad. If
Go
you
for it, curse.
if you are encouraging your kids to not be artistic, and because I think it breeds a lot of empathy, and like there's a whole other thing we can talk about, and like why creativity like creates so much beauty in the world. But I'm like, those kids only, they've been taught that they could only pay attention to like the bottom line. Creativity doesn't matter. Don't do it. We're building these pathways, and then they become adults and they're not going to vote for arts education. They're not going to vote for these important things that we need as a culture and a society. And I know that's spicy and you don't have to agree with it. And we have seen like forever, like art has played such an important role in like who we are as people, how we tell stories, how our stories are told. We don't really think about that. We don't really think about us as being the Romans to somebody else's generation. But we are. And what are we creating? What are we outputting? What will people be learning about us? Learning about us.
Yeah.
If we don't, yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. Just go like it just
No,
got me so sad.
It's because all of it is a reflection. So I mean,
Yes.
music, movies, visual arts, dance, business, everything is a product of the time. It's
100%.
a product of the times.
Yeah.
And it's this awareness, everybody. It's let's wake up. And this is why these conversations are happening. And I'm so grateful that you're here with me today to kick off my podcast again after a year of quiet. You're my 237th episode. And
Ooh.
yeah, just beautiful. So anyway, Leslie, how can people connect with you?
You can find me over on Instagram. That's probably where I'm the most active. It's just my name, Leslie Kuny, Leslie. Just blanked on my own name, Kuny. I'm there. Yeah, Leslie Kuny, just my name is my Instagram. LeslieKuny.com is my website. If you are even if you're not a local human and you kind of like what I'm saying and want to talk or want to mentorship or work together, there's lots of information there. I have other podcasts, and my YouTube page is also linked on my website if you'd like to see my work. Yeah, I'm around, and I just really appreciate the opportunity to talk about creativity. And explore that with people and empower, like I say, empower people to be like, yeah, that's a
Power.
part of who you are. We just have to find like your special sauce of what your creativity is like, and it's not going to be the same as the person next to you, and that's what's lovely about it.
It's incredibly beautiful about it. Leslie, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
grateful, everybody. I am so grateful. I just want to, I can't say it enough, just because this topic, this is my passion, this is my heart, this is my
Yeah.
mission, in order to empower people for you to be able to see creativity going beyond a pencil and a paintbrush, and understanding, like we've said throughout this whole conversation, that it is within all of us.
Yeah.
So please, like, follow, subscribe, share with your friends. And there is going to be another episode coming up later in next week. More to
Awesome.
come on that. You will see posts for it, everybody. But as soon as you subscribe, you will be getting the updates on everything. So, Leslie, thank you. Thank you to the
Thank you,
viewers.
Hollis. Yes.
And yes, everybody have a wonderful rest of the day, evening, morning, wherever you
Yeah.
are in the world.
That's right.
Goodbye, everybody.